All right, let's dive into something that is, without a doubt, one of the most critical parts of cloud computing, how you architect identity on AWS. It's all about making sure the right people can access the right things at exactly the right time. If you get this wrong, you're basically leaving a massive security hole wide open. But if you get it right, well, then you're building an incredible foundation for security and for growth.
And really, that brings us to the big question we're going to tackle. How do you give your team the access they need to do their jobs without just handing over the keys to the entire kingdom? This is a challenge that every single company faces. I don't care if you're a solo founder or a global enterprise. It's the ultimate tightrope walk of cloud security.
So, to really get a handle on this, let's follow the journey of a fictional startup. We'll call them Innovate App. And like a lot of great ideas, it all starts with just one founder, a laptop, and a really big vision. In those early days, you know how it is. Speed is everything. So the founder does what a lot of people do. They use the main AWS root account for absolutely everything. Coding, deploying new features, checking the billing, you name it. It's fast, it's easy, and it's kind of like using the master key to the entire building just to unlock your office door. I mean, sure, it works, but one little slip up, one lost key, and the entire company is completely exposed. But success. Innovate App gets some funding, and they hire their very first developer. This is fantastic news, right? But it immediately creates a brand new problem. The founder can't just share that all-powerful root password, can they? Of course not. They need a way to define who this new person is in the system and what they're allowed to touch. To solve this, AWS gives us two core ways to think about identity. And trust me, getting the difference here is absolutely crucial. First, you've got an IAM user. Think of this like a permanent employee badge with a name on it. It defines who you are. Then you have an IAM role. Now, this isn't a person, it's a set of temporary permissions. It defines what you can do for a short amount of time. Honestly, this distinction, it's the bedrock of good AWS security. And here's probably the best way to think about it. A role is like a hat. A developer might need to put on their database admin hat to run a critical update. Now, while they're wearing that hat, they have all these powerful permissions. But as soon as that job is done, they take the hat off and poof, those permissions vanish. The simple idea is a total game changer for reducing risk. Okay, so what happens when the team at Innovate Apps starts to grow? You're not going to assign permissions one by one to every single new person. That would be a nightmare. That's where IAM groups come in. You just create a group. Let's call it developers. You attach the permissions to the group, and then you just add new developers to it as they join. It's so much more efficient, it's consistent, and it massively reduces the chance of human error. Okay, so we figured out who our people are with users and groups. The next huge piece of this puzzle is defining what they're actually allowed to do.
And the answer to that lies in something called an IAM policy. Honestly, the best way to think of a policy is like a digital keycard. It's just a document written in a specific way that explicitly lists what actions are allowed or denied. You attach this keycard to a user, a group, or a role, and that's what determines exactly which doors they can open in your AWS world.
Now, when you're making these key cards, there is one golden rule you absolutely have to live by: the principle of least privilege. It's a simple but incredibly powerful three-step process. Step 1, everybody starts with 0 permissions, nothing, by default. Step 2, you grant only the absolute minimum permissions they need to do their specific job. And step 3, this is the one people forget, you have to periodically go back and review and remove permissions that aren't being used anymore. This isn't a one-time setup, it is a continuous cycle of being vigilant.
Okay, so knowing the right way to do things is one thing, but it's just as important, maybe even more important, to know what not to do. So let's look at some of the common security traps or anti-patterns that even really smart teams fall into when they're moving fast.
Let's just run through the biggest ones. First, as we saw with our founder, never ever use the root user for daily tasks. Lock it away and only use it for emergencies. Second, resist the urge to just give everyone the administrator access policy. I get it, it's easy, but it makes every single user a potential walking disaster. Third, and this is a big one, never share IAM user accounts. If you do and something goes wrong, you have no idea who did it. It's a complete black hole for accountability. And finally, avoid using permanent, long-lived access keys for your applications. If those keys ever leak online, they are basically a permanent backdoor into your entire system. Phew! Okay, we've seen the pitfalls that could totally sink Innovate App before it even gets off the ground. So what does a good, scalable setup actually look like? Let's lay out a simple blueprint for building a secure identity foundation that will actually grow with your organization. Really, it all boils down to 3 non-negotiable rules. First, use roles for everything you possibly can. You want to prioritize temporary permissions over permanent keys, especially for your applications. Second, centralize your identity. This means you connect AWS to a central system like your Google Workspace or Entra ID, so your team has one secure login for everything. We call this single sign-on or SSO. And third, like we talked about, use groups for policies. Manage permissions for teams, not for individuals. It's the only way to keep things sane and scalable. You know, when you boil it all down, it comes back to this one simple truth. Firewalls, network security, all that stuff is important, for sure. But if you don't control who can do what in your account, none of it matters. Your identity architecture truly is your cloud's first and most important line of defense. So as we wrap this up, I'll just leave you with this one question to think about for your own environment. Is your cloud a fortress built with intentional, strong rules of entry? Or have you accidentally left out the welcome mat for anyone to wander in? The choice, ultimately, is yours.